thank you, Elsa and Joel, for joining us today. I'd like to start off, maybe, Joel, if you could tell us a little bit about who you are, a brief introduction. We'll let Elsa introduce herself as well, and then kind of tell us a little bit about how you came to know Kevin.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like you said, my name is Joel. Right now, I'm a junior at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, double majoring in computer and electrical engineering. But outside of my, academic work, I do a ton of aerospace work. Right now, I am the general team lead and electrical team lead for a group we call the Aerospace Experimental Payloads. And just at the beginning of this year, um, we kind of shifted our projects to get started on a CubeSat project where we were able to get in contact with Kevin. And then we went ahead and we applied for the CubeSat Launch Initiative grant. And part of this was forming the Big Red Satellite team, which is a group of middle schoolers and high schoolers that we work with on this CubeSat project.
Elsa, you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us how you came to be involved in such a that's a really big project?
Yeah, so I'm Elsa. I'm going to be a freshman next year at Lincoln East. And I got involved because I've done camps with UNL before, and I was put on an email list from them. And I heard about the CubeSat team, and I thought it would be lots of fun. I love space, just kind of like in the background. I was just it's really interesting to me. But I saw it, and I was like, whoa, I could be building a satellite while I'm still in middle and high school. And so I jumped at the chance.
It's very cool. Quick follow-up question. Elsa, I saw recently where BigRedSat or the aerospace team at UNL, you did your first high altitude balloon, or in recent times, you did a high altitude balloon here recently. And I wanted to know, were you there that day, and did you know about it? And were you a part of that event as well?
Yeah, well, UNL launched a balloon first, but then what was it, March, I think? Was it March or was it April? We launched our own high altitude balloon. We had 3 payloads from the middle and high schooler teams and 3 payloads from the AXP team. We decided on the ideas ourselves. We helped plan and build them. And then we had 2 launches. Our first one failed. It was really windy and the balloon popped, but our second one was successful.
That's we've done a lot of those high altitude balloons, and I had one where I sheared. I'm pretty sure the wind just sheared the balloon right where the nozzle is, and at about a third of the way up, we were hoping to achieve altitude wise, and so we all have those days, right? Engineering's tough. So, Joel, tell us about the experimental team that you are an integral part of at UNL, because I know that's different than the work that will become and is the BigRedSat. So tell us a little bit about what UNL has to offer for aspiring young engineering students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So AXP, or Aerospace Experimental Payloads, is actually one of 6 design teams in the Aerospace Club. We work on lots of different aerospace projects, and AXP specifically has different projects that they're working on as well. So our main project right now, of course, is the CubeSat, or CSLI. But also this past year, we've done 2 high-altitude air balloons, one with the Big Red Satellite team, and then additionally, this spring, we've also participated in something called Rock On through the Colorado Space Grant Foundation, where we just build kind of like 2 off-the-shelf not high altitude, sounding rocket payloads.
Yeah, that's
which is
Wallops flight opportunity, right? That's a big
absolutely
deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when we have new members come in, it's really good for the college students, the new college students, to take this and go through that entire design process. And normally it's over the summer, over about a week, and they get to learn so much. But they actually had about a month and a half because it was all remote this year. But they learned a lot, and one of our sounding rocket payloads was actually selected for launch, which will be launched, I want to say, at the end of June.
Mm-hmm. Now, are any of you traveling to Virginia for that launch, or are you just going to watch it remote?
Sadly, we're not traveling, but we will all be watching it, I am sure.
Well, I'm sure it'll be super exciting. I want to talk a little bit about the BigRedSat. So I know that you have several teams that work kind of within the I think it used the Aerospace Experimental Payloads. Do you call that AXP because of the experience? Okay, right. So you have 6 groups in that. Tell me a little bit about how this team was formed and what its mission is, like, what its payload's going to be, or when you get it ready.
Yeah, so let's see, that was a while ago, I guess. But the Big Red Satellite team was formed with the help of one of the staff members in the College of Engineering who does a lot of outreach work. And then we were able to kind of create this big email list with an application to the Big Red Satellite team because, part of CSLI is outreach, of course. And so we wanted to see if we could reach out to middle schoolers and high schoolers in our area to help us on this project. And we got the idea from you guys down in Florida, and the great work that your middle school team has done. But
so
then we were able.
How you got on board, Elsa, is that they reached out and they were looking for people, and so because you were on that email list, so that's great. That makes sense to me because I work with Kevin and we have the same kids, so I know how that came about. But we've often tried to figure out like why other kids aren't doing stuff like this, and I really think it's just about not knowing when it's happening. So I think it's pretty great that you reached out to them. When does it launch? When does BigRedSat?
Well, it'll probably be what, 2 years?
Okay,
minimum?
right. It was just selected, right? You were
Right.
That's right. This is just this round. So what is it going to do? What is its mission?
Yeah, so the primary mission is to test some different solar panels. One of the new experimental type of solar panels that are really looking good for the future are perovskites. And so we're trying to fly a perovskite alongside a silicon cell in order to test a little bit about that perovskite in a space environment. Because as to date, there have been no perovskites actually tested in a space environment. So hopefully we'll be able to increase the technology readiness level of those perovskites and hopefully secure funding for some other project to really, really go into depth for the application of these perovskites in space.
For our listeners, maybe you could describe a little bit about what makes this solar cell unique. Is it first of all, is it frangible? Does it make a lot of dust? Is it glassy, or is it more flexible, like something you would put on an RC aircraft?
Well, I'll say Elsa probably has a little bit better idea for that because I worked a lot of the electrical side of things. I know Elsa does a lot of special systems.
Yeah, we so the good things about the perovskites, well, yes, they're very flexible, they're very thin, which makes them kind of delicate, especially in like outside. If you were to put them outside, the dust and the heat and all of the stuff in the air kind of deteriorates them pretty fast. There are a couple ways to like combat this. One is encapsulation, which we'll probably be using because they're just really delicate, but they are getting better. We hope like in space there isn't really dust, and though there is no like atmosphere to protect them from radiation, we're hoping we won't have to encapsulate them, but we never know.
Now, are you going to purchase these, or are you going to try to manufacture your own, or are you going to buy some components and then assemble your solar arrays in-house?
We considered manufacturing them ourselves, but we want a good test result, because if we manufacture them ourselves, our data may be skewed because we might have not done a good job manufacturing them. But if we do get them from a company, hopefully we can get them for free and tell them that we'll be testing them. They'll be able to advertise their product better, and that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, outstanding. I know Joel mentioned he dropped the acronym CSLI. Probably most of our listeners know that the CSLI is the NASA-sponsored CubeSat launch initiative. And why Joel and Elsa are here today, and it's such a big deal, is that NASA's on a quest to fly CubeSat from all 50 states. And Nebraska, and I want to say 8 other states, have yet to fly one. So this BigRedSat represents Nebraska's very first satellite. And that, my friends, is always a big deal. So I would say, in general, Elsa, would you say you're proud to be a part of the team? You're happy to be selected? All of the above, none of the above? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I'm really proud to be part of the team. I'm glad that Nebraska is finally launching a satellite, and I'm really excited for it to be launched. I'm excited to learn more while we build it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I was so happy when we were selected. I remember they wrote it on balloons, and we got them out of the box, and we were all really happy.
Wow, it's like a big reveal. It's like a reveal, but that's pretty great. That's awesome, especially you with the balloon thing. A question for both of you, or maybe even if it might just be more for Elsa. When we were speaking with John McClure at a previous podcast, he was talking about how they have a goal in Nebraska to really bring space education to all grade levels. And so I guess Elsa, is probably more for you, although Joel, you can comment on what your education prior to going to the university was like. What do you think the biggest contrast is between the real work of what you're doing versus what you might be getting in your class? In other words, I guess when your friends talk to you about what you're doing, are they in disbelief? Are they wondering why they can't be part of it? So like from a perspective of the student, what do we need to change about education? Maybe, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so I've gone through, all grades, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we don't do a lot of like astronomy or we do talk about space sometimes, but it's just kind of like general knowledge, like how the solar system, what it looks like, what all the planets are. We honestly have never gone in depth more than that. And I think that we should be learning more about space because that's just kind of like the next frontier of exploration. And this generation is going to be the one that's going to be going to Mars and going on spaceships. And I think everyone should have the opportunity to become interested in that earlier and to have a better chance of becoming successful in the field if they want to be.
That's really good. Now, Joel, let me take the other side of the coin. Now, you're a college student. You're halfway through or so. You're going to be an engineer. How would you describe what would be the ultimate dream job for you upon graduating from University of Nebraska-Lincoln?
A dream job, I guess. So, ever since I was a kid, I didn't want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be the person who designed those rockets or designed those systems that got astronauts up into space safely and allowed for that exploration. So I'd say a dream job for me is being able to work on, something like that. I know there's so much out there that goes into building a rocket, building a satellite, all of that stuff. So I'm not super picky right now. I want to help advance humanity. I guess you could say it.
Okay. If you'll remind me, one of my former summer camp students is a manager at SpaceX, and they build the Merlin rocket engines in Hawthorne, California. And she is actually a recruiter and always wants me to let her know who are some good kids out there looking for potential internships and jobs. Perhaps, if you're interested, SpaceX seems to be where a lot of young engineers want to go, at least try for a few years. We can make that happen. We can connect you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I agree.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about some of the challenges that you've had. So this is a really big project. I mean, when most people hear that university students are doing CubeSats, that's not as much of a surprise as it is when you bring those middle schoolers involved, right? So overall, working with the younger students, which I know is part of the outreach and that was part of the plan, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had, not just with trying to bring new people involved, or to bring new people in, but also in general with the whole process? Or do you expect that they're coming?
Yeah, so there has been some difficulties there, as there always is, and we even have some of these same difficulties with experienced college students coming in, because when you have a couple years of schooling, it's really easy when you don't know the material really well is to speak at a really high level of what you do know and really struggle to break it down into someone that doesn't have all that background. And so it's been actually really beneficial for the Aerospace Club in general, working with these younger students, being able to really practice and learn our subject matter better, to where we can break things down into terms with someone that doesn't have a ton of background can understand, and explaining it well, which is very difficult, and a lot of people in the field of engineering struggle with. that. A lot of professors have said that as well, that it's important for us to be able to do that.
No, I agree. Even as just a teacher in general, wherever your students are at, trying to adapt to where their levels are can be challenging. So Elsa, for you, you got involved, you're excited about it, but what has been maybe, are you the only 8th grader, or are there others like you as well? Are there other students from your school?
There's no one from my school, but there are a lot of other 8th graders. Well, I suppose they're going to be 9th graders now. And there were a couple 9th graders. I think, well, she's going to be an 11th grader now. I'm pretty sure that's everyone.
So what would you think the challenges are then from your aspect? So he's describing the idea of like the content knowledge, trying to bring it down, but you got invited, you're there. What were the challenges for the younger students?
Well, I think we're all kind of going into this with not a lot of knowledge, because there's not a lot of chances to learn anything like this in depth about space. But there are, like, some of us have like a little knowledge of electrical boards or programming, and we're learning more as we go. We didn't start out with a lot, but I think we're learning pretty fast.
I having done this, having really enjoyed the CubeSats, I would tell you that having kids that start out as blank pages, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has to start out somewhere, right? And in fact, I think failing is a uniquely wonderful thing about an engineering project. Nothing makes you learn better than a good failure. I think messing up is the true way to really get knowledge about what just happened. How can I prevent that from happening ever again? Really understanding.
And it may well be that your biggest challenge is coming in that you're going to be bored, and like you've been building CubeSats, and you're going to go into high school now, and you're gonna be like, and now what?
I will tell you that some of the students on our first satellite, they never got to scratch the itch in high school like they did in middle school, because they got to be a part of the first middle school team in the country, and that was a little disappointing for them. But your proximity to the university, your connection to the engineering school, I feel like they should go ahead and just, we should figure out a way to get you some credit for your freshman year of engineering while you're in high school. And that way you won't leave the state, and you'll be a member of the AXP. Like, Joel can hand off the reins to you when he graduates. So I always like mentoring and being able to help train your replacements. So Joel is actually training his replacements.
Yeah.
Joel, we laugh a little bit because in teacher speak, you really don't know something until you can teach it to someone else, right? That's when you really know your stuff. And you're right. You can be really smart on a subject, but you can be a terrible communicator. So being able to do both is a really powerful, it'll make you a very good engineer in the real world.
So we normally kind of close out with that kind of an ending thing about just general advice. So do you have anything else before we get to that part? Or?
Well, tell us just a little bit about how many non-college students are on your team. What is the next big event that's coming up? And we'll also want to know where we can find you online.
Yeah, we have 14 middle and high school students on our team. Our website is BigRedSat.org. And we have a Facebook and an Insta profile, I'm pretty sure. I think Joel,
you guys yourself manage the social media, the middle schoolers, the high schoolers?
Right now, one of our AXP leads, MJ, is handling that, but we're planning this summer to we're forming a little media team, and we'll be probably posting a lot more often and a lot more stuff like that.
I will just share this with you, Elsa, as you continue to learn and grow and build your interest. If you will start talking to 5-year-olds, first graders, third graders, you will be then mentoring them, just like Joel and the college kids are mentoring you. And I find that the students seem to really enjoy that as well. Both the little kids that get to hang out with the older kids, and the older kids, which are your age, doing the actual teaching of a lesson. And it doesn't have to be complicated. The little kids are going to love that stuff.
So that kind of does bring us, I guess.
Hold on, Joel, we didn't hear what's the next step. What's the next step for BigRedSat? Have you done your, I know we did a preliminary design review last October, but what's next? Have you guys started working on your prototype? What's going on?
Yeah, so we have a big schedule, of course, with different kind of phases. Right now, we're taking I wouldn't say a break, but more a step back, and doing a lot more research right now over the summer with our individual design or design sub teams. And a big part of that is sourcing those perovskite panels because they are not incredibly easy to come by in a usable fashion.
A little pricey too, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We found that once we went through the PDR and got selected, we would back up and redo the PDR and really, we totally get it, right? You cannot rush a great engineering project. What's the iron triangle? You have scope, money, and schedule, right? You cannot cheat one without affecting the others. So
exactly.
we're really proud of you guys. My kids, we celebrate the fact that you guys were selected, and we're going to keep applying ourselves. We'll hopefully get our third one picked this coming year, but
I know they're going to be talking about it at the upcoming Miss Lear's banquet as well. They're going to be mentioning the BigRedSat.
And we're presenting in Dubai in October, and I'm sure that BigRedSat will come up in some of the presentations. Honestly, we're just looking forward to seeing more and more good things from you guys.
Well, now are we ready? So I guess the last part is really some advice. So when we have listeners, again, I told you there are a lot of times they're just students who are kind of really interested in what we're doing, various levels. We had the kids leave us in middle school. They went off to high school. We did not have a contiguous program, one of the downfalls. So these high school kids sometimes come back and work with our kids like you're doing, almost like at that mentoring level. But if you were to give some advice, Elsa, to people of your age or in middle school about to go to high school, what would you say to them? And then I'll ask the same question of you, Joel, in regards to people who are going to university, just ways to stick with the program or to whatever it is that you want to share with them, because we have both. So Elsa, you.
Well, I think, it's really nice, this program. A lot of middle school students, I'm pretty sure we were all in 8th grade, so now we'll all be in high school. And the program will continue. We'll all still be on the team. And once as we launch the CubeSat and when we graduate high school, if we end up going to UNL, we can join the AXP team and then be on the team from like a different perspective and be the mentors instead of the students. And what's really nice about that is we'll already have experience being the students on the team. So I think we'll be really good mentors because we've already had the experience of being the students.
Do you recruit some of your friends now? Do you be like, hey, listen, I can't hang out with you and do this this other thing because we got to go build some satellites? Do you kind of recruit that way?
I haven't recruited anyone, but my friends are really interested. They like when I send them like news stories and stuff about what we're doing. They're all pretty smart people, so they've just kind of been watching what I was doing.
And Joel, your advice for those college students out there?
Yeah, so I will say AXP existed before. It was me and another friend really interested in aerospace. The club existed, but it was kind of falling down. There was about 3 members, and we got started at the very beginning, or 3 members in addition to the 2 of us at the very beginning of this school year. And then we, got the opportunity to get started on the CSLI project, gained a bunch of members from, the cool project we were getting to work on, and got, middle schoolers and high schoolers involved as well. But that was only allowed because we said, we're going to put this time aside every day and work on creating this program at our school because it did not exist before then. So just getting started on something, it's so easy to look at a big project like this and say, that's never going to happen or it's going to take too much work. But, truth comes, you need other people to get started. And once you get started, other people will become interested. So just to get started with these really cool projects.
Yes, inertia, right? Overcome inertia.
Absolutely.
Just get started. Make a mess. You will fail. Exactly. You will make a mess. It's okay. That's cool. Well, we've really enjoyed speaking with both of you today. Perhaps in the future we can interview you again, and that way we can get an update on how Big Red 1 is progressing, or BigRedSat. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for
guys.
having us.